Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson, and welcome to Tools, Techniques, and Mental Models for Success series. In this series, we look at a lot of different tools and techniques that can be used to help you succeed in project management, in construction practices, in your personal life. A lot of them actually overlap each other, some more than others. Today's topic, which is the Pareto Principle, definitely covers many areas. And no matter who you are, I think you'll find this useful. So let's get started. The Pareto Principle has been around for a long time. It was developed by Pareto, Vilfredo Pareto. He's an Italian economist who, in the late 1800s, observed a number of things that had this interrelationship between 80-20. For example, he noticed that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people. I think we kind of see that today when we talk about the one percenters, although it's shifted somewhat. One of the things I'll mention with the Pareto Principle, it's not rock solid that it has to be exactly 80-20. It could be 70-30. It could be 90-10. It's kind of in that range, that a lot of things tend to occur in that range. And I think if you're aware of it and you observe it, you'll see some opportunities there. It allows you to focus in your time into what you want to really sort of accomplish, as you'll see in some of the examples that we'll see, and some of the areas where maybe you waste some time and effort. So how can we best spend our time? Really, our most important asset is time. It's not dollars, it's time. And although we can use Pareto Principle for dollars too, but that's a side note. So the Pareto Principle states that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes. And this sort of view of it was actually brought up by J.M. Juran. J.M. Juran was a management consultant who, along with Edwards Deming, contributed a great deal to the continuous improvement movement, lean manufacturing, the Toyota production system, which of course now led to the area of the field that I'm in, which is construction management, has led to lean construction. So there's been a long path of use in this. And what J.M. Juran actually said about the Pareto Principle is he called it the trivial many and the vital few tasks. So it can actually be framed in a lot of different ways. So this chart just above me really kind of holds that true. So the vital few tasks, all right, as an example, 20% of time leads to 80% of results. 80% of time expended leads to 20% of results. That's pretty impactful when you think about it. So, if you think about what you do in a day at work, probably 20% of what you do in a day leads to 80% of your results. And I want you to sort of think about that. What are some of the things that you're doing? Are they pretty superficial things? Are they really important? This kind of ties into the Eisenhower matrix too, which I discuss in another tutorial. But really, what's really giving us our results? What are we working on that really gives us our results? And if you thought about that, is there a way of doing more of that? Because that would increase your results, right? And could we get rid of some of the things that maybe isn't giving us the same kind of output? Or could we adjust that so that it gives us a better output? That's one way of thinking of the Pareto Principle, also known as Pareto's Law or the 80-20 principle. So there's actually even a Pareto chart. If you study PMP, Project Management Professional, through the PMI, Project Management Institute, they discuss the Pareto chart. That's one of the project management tools that can be utilized. So I kind of did up this quick chart here, and I thought it would be appropriate maybe to break it down into the 8 areas of waste. If we're in construction, they're actually the same if you're in manufacturing and you're using lean methodology. Just probably what the defects are changes. So we have defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, extra processing. So let's say we were on a really big construction project and we were tracking the amount of occurrences that we were getting in each area. So we could do this a number of different ways. We could do it occurrences. We could do it by a cost in dollars that it's impacting our project. But sometimes it's easy. Sometimes keeping something a little bit simpler is easier to follow. So we'll go with that. And actually, the 8 areas of waste, if you frame them this way, they actually, so you can remember them better, are called downtime. And so we have 190 in defects. Well, that's not hard to do in construction, believe me. Overproduction, waiting. Non-utilized talents is starting to go down now. Non-utilized talent is when you've got people that you really haven't been tapping them when you should have been tapping them for their expertise. Transportation deliveries, etc. Inventory, how much we got in stock. And so it's going down. Over extra processing or over processing, we call it extra to fit the downtime explanation. Not too much in there. All right, so not too much that we're doing more than we're supposed to be doing according to our contract. Right, so if we put that and we put them into a chart, right, we can, or a histograph, we can see, and we put them from most to least, we can start to see, well, there's a number of these that it's fairly low, right? And if we put 80% following it on this, basically based on the amount of usage, we can see that at a certain point, probably around here, it crosses. So these 3 are the most impactful on our project, right? These are the 3 that are most impactful. The rest, not so much. So if we were going to be targeting a specific area, we would definitely want to be targeting these 3. And you might want to start looking at, for example, if it were me, I would probably start looking at defects. And I would be looking at defects. Within the defects, you would likely, again, you could break the defects out into where are the defects occurring. And you might have 10 areas where you have defects occurring. You know, taping of drywall defects, kitchen cabinetry defects, hardwood flooring defects. Could be a whole series of them. And you would find within that, there would be certain ones that would be grouped. So where you would want to target to get the best results, perhaps where the most money is being lost. And you would hone in on those first. It's what you're trying to do is you're trying to look for where you could put your effort, because everybody has limited effort. You don't have time to do everything. You know, it's like if you broke all these down, let's fix them all. You got to have a system so that you actually focus in where you're going to get the best return for your effort. So you want to look at where are we going to get the best return for our effort and break that down, look at it, evaluate it. Look at, all right, well, if we've only got this much time or this much money to put into it, where are we going to get the biggest return on it? So that's where the Pareto chart can help you to break it down, analyze it in a very systematic way without getting too complicated with things. You don't want to make things more complicated than they need to be. And it's a very sort of systematic way. And of course, then when you break down these numbers, then this would lower eventually, and then you start looking at it differently. Well, maybe there's another area that we should look at next, but definitely you would start out where the biggest problems are. You would forget about, so these would be the critical few, these would be the trivial many for right now, right? And then you would focus the efforts in these to get the biggest returns. Now again, you could also put this with dollar amounts associated to that, to try to come up with, you know, in case one of these is a fairly simple one and it's costing a small fortune, you wouldn't want to miss that, right? So there's different ways of posting this and evaluating it and analyzing it. And always keep an open mind to what you're looking at. It's a system, but there could be some outlier that might fall outside of what would be normally Pareto, the Pareto chart, that you may still want to focus in on. But it does give you a really good systematic way of seeing where the issues are. So that's one use of the Pareto principle. And for construction, the vital few and the trivial many. Again, thinking about what is it. And for construction, I usually think of it this way. 20% of my clients will probably make 80% of the profit. That's a very normal way of looking at it. There's been a lot of views on that. And again, it might not be 20, 80, it might be 30, 70, but you're definitely going to have certain clients that you are really profitable on, that is really sort of bringing that part home to your business. So it really makes you think about things, and makes you think about some of the clients that are actually taking a lot of your time. So 20% of my clients take 80% of my time. Well, if some of those clients aren't in that profitable area, then maybe you want to think about, is this client worth the effort? We're putting all this time and effort into this client and we never make any money from them. Maybe that's a time to pre-qualify. Maybe we don't want this particular business of this particular client. They're just too difficult to deal with. And in construction, believe me, you don't always want to work with everybody. There's always clients that you don't want to work with. So trying to identify those and think in those terms can be helpful. 20% of your subs in construction, or your people that you contract work with, take 80% of your time. Well, that would be a very good mechanism in project management to do a rating of your suppliers and your subcontractors after each project, to determine who are the really I'm a professor, right? Who are the A+ subcontractors? A+ subcontractors, those are the ones that, they're coming up with solutions before you even know there's a problem. Or are they a C subcontractor? Those are ones that if I'm going to take them on, I know it's going to take extra work managing them. An F subcontractor, let's not do business with them again. They don't fit our model. So identifying that and thinking in those terms can be very, very helpful with that. And on your projects, you're going to have that 20-80 in subcontractors typically. It may not even be the subcontractors. It might be the foreperson for the subcontractor that's problematic. So don't want to work with them again. You've just relieved yourself of future problems by thinking in these terms. So you can sort of get the idea. 20% of your activities take 80% of your time in planning and execution. We used to always think of that when we were in business, and I grew up in a family-run construction business, and I always remember my dad would look at a project and there would be a couple of things he'd look at and say, you know what, we've got to make sure the structural steel goes well. Focus in on the structural steel. And we would put a lot more effort. So that 20% of activities would put like a lot more, maybe not 80%, but definitely a large portion of effort comparatively to make sure that went well. And if we did that, then usually the project went pretty well, because the other activities, they were pretty much in our wheelhouse. We do them all the time. We've got all the really good connections and subtrades in it. This project, we're using a different structural steel subcontractor. We're a little bit concerned. We want to make sure that they're good. And we've got to put a lot more effort into managing that process and make sure that it reaches the outcome we come into. Or it could be that 20% of your activities are kind of new to you and you're not really comfortable with them. So it's a lean project and you want to make sure that you manage that process well. Or it's a BIM project and it's a level, you're taking this project to level 3, level 4, and level 5, and you haven't done that before. That would take a lot of extra focus and effort to make sure you've got the right people and that project is being managed the right way, executed the right way. And there'll be a lot of learning that'll come from that. So I usually think of it in those terms. Is there something risky or complex or activities that will lead to getting through that? It might have even scared off others from even bidding on it. And that's why you got the project. So that's why you're in it. But that could lead to 80% of your success on the project. So it's not, Duran later in life, he kind of changed the wording of it from the vital few and trivial many. He changed trivial. I forget now. You can look it up, but I forget what he changed it to. Didn't want to make it seem so inconsequential. It's not that you forget about the trivial many, but your big focus goes on the vital few. You get those working for you, your project's going to go pretty well without forgetting the trivial many. You will not be in full reaction mode for that vital few. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas there. And I think about it in many ways, not just in construction, but in many ways that it can be used to save you a lot of time and effort in managing your projects more smoothly. There's also, it's interesting, I find, there was a book written on it, Richard Koch, and a very good book. Pretty detailed. Like if you can write a whole book on this, it's very, if you really want to dive into it, I definitely dove into it. And I've read up some of his follow-up books as well. He gets into it really, really deeply, and he can really talk to the subject for sure. He applies it pretty much anywhere you can think of. When you think about time management, it's an effective use of the Pareto Principle. Often you spread your time out on many unimportant tasks, and instead of focusing on the most important ones, really understanding which of my 10 tasks are really important, and looking at that and which are going to give me the biggest result. And usually you're going to get in that zone of 20% of the 10. So 2 of them are really important. And often the really important ones are spread, like they're going to take, you can't just do them today. They take a lot of time and effort, and they take a dedication to it. So you almost have to make sure you time block a certain amount of time in your day to make sure that you're getting to those activities so that over the long run you're successful. So that's another way of thinking about it. 80% of your work-related output, as I said earlier, is coming from 20% of your time at work. Start thinking that way, and it's going to make you rethink, why am I jumping on this when this is where I'm going to get the greatest result? I'm going to have the most positive outcome. It's going to take my company that much further. It's going to take my career that much further. You'll identify these things, and it's just another one of those things, way of thinking. So it's an excellent tool. Don't use it on everything 100%. You always have to keep an open mind with tools and techniques, but you'll see there's a great many opportunities where this is useful. A lot of people ask me, how do you get so many different things done? And a lot of it, I think about the Pareto Principle. I have a lot of tools and techniques I use, so it's not for everything, but there's a lot of avenues where I see the opportunity. Any new project, right away I start breaking it down just unconsciously. What are the areas that scare me, and what are the areas that I'm going to have to really focus in on? What's keeping you up at night? If you're a contractor, what's keeping you up at night? Focus in on that. That's your 20% that's going to lead to your 80% success on this project. So hopefully that's gotten that message across. I really enjoy thinking in terms of the Pareto Principle. And of course, going back to the Pareto Chart, different ways of utilizing and applying the information is really, really helpful. And it really ties into lean thinking. So think lean, and you will do well in our business, the construction business. It's proven in the manufacturing business as well. And use it. So I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time around. Bye for now. Also, don't forget, subscribe. See you later. Bye for now.